Gaming in BS, episode 122. Welcome to Gaming. Better turn that way down. Welcome to Gaming in BS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. If you're new, good to have you on board. If you've been here for a while, good to see you again.
Well, hey, welcome back, Brett, from the above the pine curtain city of the grand city metropolis of Wausau, where you put on, I heard, a fabulous gaming convention this past weekend of January.
Yeah.
7th, 8th, and 9th, or whatever it was.
Yeah, 7th, 8th, and 9th we had, 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 8. Today's the 9th. My God, my days are mushed into one. I had, this year was the first year that I was part of the whole organization component of it. Myself, Chad, Chris. Thank you. So it's me, Chad, Chris, Zave, and Alpha involved in the main leadership components of it. And this was our very first one, new venue, brand new actual convention center. It was crazy busy, like nutso. First year we ever had a full 3-day con. We were open all day Friday, open all day Saturday, open all day Sunday. We opened at 7 a.m. every day. We're open to like midnight, except for Sunday. We closed at 7. But it was pretty packed for a good point. We learned a ton. Like, hey, let's change the flow. Let's get the vendors more traction. Hey, these hours for the vendor hall, opened a little too early, closed too early. Let's shift it. And because I'm not Gen Con. When the vendors like, can we stay open an extra hour? The crowds are picking up. I'm like, sure, I'm in charge. I'll make that call. We're staying open. Then they're, making more money, being happy. Crowds came in. We had, I would say we were in the 90th percentile of success, which was really good. We had the tabletop event software from the guys at GameCrafter. JT was physically there on site, not only to run games for us, but to make sure that the convention went off without a hitch. We had a couple technical glitches we learned. We did some changes and tweaks to the site on the fly. I had my wife and my 3 youngest were there, Connor, AJ, and Alana. AJ and Alana played 6 hours of D&D straight on Friday. D&D.
In one game?
It was a 2-parter. They played the first part. They had such a good time. They're like, we have to play a second part. Had like an hour break in between.
Man, kudos to them, because now, of course, I do not have kids, but the fact that you can get a couple kids to stay at one table for 6 hours, maybe there's a break.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good, though.
It was a guy was running a 5e D&D with Pokemon monsters and kind of Pokemon mythology in it, and they just ate it up. They had a great time. So, of course, the best thing that comes of it is they come up to me and, AJ, Alon, how was it? That was the best game ever. He's the best dungeon master. And I'm like, I have run for you. I am your father.
Oh, snap. Better DM than Daddy-O. Oh, no.
Apparently. They had a blast, though. Then there were some video game tournaments. We had Badger State Games, which is the state game system. Ticket to Ride tournament. I got to put the gold, silver medal, bronze medals on top of people's necks. That was kind of cool. Cameras shoved in my face from different news sources trying to figure out why you moved, what you're doing. So I got used
media coverage, man.
I totally got media coverage. I got used to saying the same story over and over and over again.
Where's the YouTube? Where's the videos?
I gotta find them now. Basically, I tried my damnedest to tweet out through the Evercon LLC through the Evercon Twitter and our Facebook. I tried my damnedest to put up as many pictures and posts as I could, but it was tough to keep up with everything and then do social media. So we have a list of things we need to fix this stuff for 2018. How are we going to do that better? But overall, it's smaller tweaks, consolidating stuff, tightening things up. One of the pieces that we had, which was just a colossal hit, was the Last Hope LARP. I talked about this on the show before, but it's Wisconsin-based, foam swords, people in full immersion costume type LARP. And those people were fantastic. They were at Gamehole. Sean, I don't know if you remember them. The one in
I do remember, yeah.
The guys are kind of stalking each other through the convention. Well, Friday was a little slow, so they did a lot of training sessions with the kids and the adults and so on that showed up. Saturday, they had a lot of people kind of mob their area. Then they had these huge pitch battles in this big room we gave them. And then I let them range throughout the convention, stalking and hiding and sneaking up on each other through the attendees and so on. Sunday was dead because it's Sunday, so they turned it up a notch further, and then they were taking their event throughout the con. It was just so much fun. So much fun. I got a hard sell that I need to go try LARPing, because apparently they're coming to Mazomanie for an event this next month in February. Like, so Mazomanie, that's pretty close to Madison. So actually, that's about 30 minutes from my house. Like, see, you could come. Your kids had fun. Come on, Dad, bring the kids. So that was cool. The other really cool piece was like Corey Wynn, Dave Wynn, their another brother of theirs came, and they brought their kids, excuse me, on Saturday, and it was awesome to see those guys there. They had Kevin Lovecraft, Austin, and they were there Friday, Saturday, and they had to leave a little bit early Sunday, so Austin was feeling under the weather. But then we had Mr. Farmer came up on Saturday to help those.
He couldn't meet Wayne and I for gamer coffee breakfast. He was in Wausau.
Yeah, he was trying to help Kevin and Austin do a little games on demand action. We it did not go over as well as we'd hoped. It's not like a really indie game crowd, but we started to get people more interested. They've already told me some of the plots and plans they have to improve it for next year, so they had enough fun to come back. So that was really cool. Who else did I see there? We had most of the guys from my gaming crew, from my group, like Alpha, Beta, Zave, Lenny, all the guys, and the names I've thrown out here a bunch of times. They were all there running games. My buddy Lenny ran the one game based with the New World of Darkness scenario. My son played in that, along with Alpha's wife, Sarah. Alpha was able to get in on it too. And they went from the convention to Lenny's brother-in-law owns the laser tag area. So they went from the convention and they went to laser tag, fighting laser tag guys in full zombie makeup. And then you run through with these laser tag weapons that are dialed up or down. Like if you have a shotgun, it does so much damage. If you have a pistol, it does this other amount of damage. Then you have hit points and how many shots it takes to take down the lead zombie. And Lenny's statement to me, he said, "I didn't think Alpha could run that fast." He said when the big zombie popped out, he went, "Fuck that," and just took off. He said he took off. He said your son had a hard time keeping up with him. He said he just booked. So it was crazy fun. We had, let's see here. God, I think total badges, the highest badge number I saw, I did not get a chance to check it, but the highest badge number I saw written down in our count was 1,022.
Wow, man.
So we moved. Thank you. As I mentioned before, we went from a junior high school where we would potentially get 1,300, 1,500 people. When we talked to the Visitors Bureau and the all the tourism stuff in the area, they were thinking, well, do you think you could get 2,000 people? And we're like, you know what? Not year one at the new location. A lot of change, price changes, shifts, and so on. But we need to adjust it. So having 1,000 people show up is pretty cool. Most of it was on Saturday, which will help us adjust kind of how we schedule things and all that stuff. We're also going to change our hours. After 10 o'clock, it was really dead. We're like, why am I here till midnight? Can't stand up. This is dumb. No one shows up until 9 o'clock in the morning. Why did we open at 7? This is silly. So we can fix that stuff. That's easy fixes. Excuse me. What else? For going from everything new, like I said, ticketing system, badges, trying the new software, everything, that shit just worked. So if you were running, I kid you not, and I did a oh my God, these guys are awesome video for the tabletop events folks for JT, but they're fucking awesome. If you were thinking about running a convention, a tabletop gaming convention, you use tabletop events. You get a hold of JT and those guys, that's the Game Crafter crew, and you work with them and figure out how to use their software. It's awesome. It did everything we needed it to. We got financial reports, we got all that good stuff. It's really, really good. So, special guests we had. I got to have dinner, one-on-one with Ken Height, which was really awesome. Got to pick his brain a bit. Lloyd Metcalf was there. Tim Seeley, the artist. Lloyd Metcalf is a artist and game designer. Lloyd Metcalf, as I said, Tim Seeley. Drew Hapley is one of the Men in Black. He's local. His grandparents still live in town, so he shows up and runs a bunch of MIB stuff for us. But everybody in the professional gamers, right, the designers and stuff, they all had a chance to take me aside and say, "Hey, Brad, I go to a shit ton of conventions across the country. If you're trying to, what are you trying to do here?" And Ken asked me that. And I said, "Ken, I want to increase role playing. I want to change this." He said, "Here's some things I have seen that have worked at these types of conventions. This is what I would do. As a special guest, Ken, what do you need? I like to have these things in place for me." He said, "These are my own idiosyncrasies. maybe good, maybe bad for other people, but this would help. Simple things like, hey, if you could get a bunch of people I know from the Chicago area, so there's a number of game designers that are in Chicago, it's fun to road trip with my buddies. If I could get PK Sullivan to come up here with me, he said, I'd ride up with PK. We could rent a car, cruise on up to Wausau. And he said, I don't know, what did he say? He said, I don't know if you got me drunk or drugged via email. He said, but it's 15 below zero and I'm happy to be here. So that's kind of weird. Because traditionally speaking, EverCon is like the coldest day at the start of the new year.
Well, Ken's, and Ken's from the Windy City, so it's not like
Oklahoma
he's from
originally,
tropical.
But no, he lives in Chicago now, but he said to go north in January for a convention, he said is not normally something he would think of. But did we have the huge numbers show up for his couple seminars? No, we didn't. It was small seminars. Fine. We're growing our seminar track. We're growing these different components. Kevin and I know Zave was able to get in on the 2 because it was running late in the day. We had one open slot, so I threw Zave in there. Said, Zave, you're not doing anything. Go play a game with Ken Height. So Kevin got in there, and I think Eric Farmer was in there too. And they, I think it was Delta Green. Or I think it was Delta Green anyway. I completely forgot the hell he was doing.
Well, see, that's the unique thing about, even a con that. So Ken in our circles is well known. Some other circles he's not so much, maybe, right?
It was crazy. I did talk to people. They're like, "Who's Ken Height?" I'm like, "How do you mean you don't know who Ken Height is?" Oh my god!
But they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know anybody. Like even Merles, they wouldn't even know, right?
Yeah, Merles. The guy, 5th edition D&D in general.
They just don't know. They just know the brand and the game, and they, at certain ages, you just don't know people. It's like actors and actresses. You're like, oh, I recognize that person's face. That's the character from that show,
exactly.
Right? Not the actor and actress.
Sorry, go ahead.
But the nice thing about it is, though, you get like, somebody like Eric Farmer that goes to that venue. They can take advantage of the intimacy of that game that Ken runs.
Exactly.
Like, holy shit, I got Ken Height running this game. It's really cool. Like, it's not a battle to get tickets or anything necessarily,
Correct.
Which, it's like an exclusive, right?
Yes. The other guest we had was David McGarry, the guy who designed the Dungeon board game. He had wanted to do, he's a huge fanatic of cold fusion, and he has done all this research. It's like a hobby for him. He's like, I want to do a talk on cold fusion. And we said, David, I don't know. He goes, no, I want to try it. He said, I don't care if no one shows up. I really want to try it because I want to set up my system and blah, blah, blah. No one showed. It didn't happen, but we had gone out to dinner with him the night before. I helped him set up his table. Like, he and his wife Rose, they're just amazingly cool people. And he's playing Dungeon with the kids. He's playing with adults, and he starts talking to. It's a long session of Dungeon because he tells them, "Hey, this is how I made the game," and so on. And some of the kids are like, "You made this game?" Yes, I designed this game back in whenever. And he brought with him Dave Arneson's ping pong table. It's a collapsible ping pong table that Arneson used to use. And he left it out for the whole con. He's like, play on this table, enjoy it. It's a piece of gaming history. So now my claim to fame is I got to fix a busted piece of Dave Arneson's ping pong table because the clasp that clipped it together got bent and twisted in transport. And I happened to have my Leatherman on me. And poor Dave's like, do you have a pliers or something? And I said, yes, here, let me help you, sir. There. Awesome con manager guy comes over and fixes table. I'm suddenly amazing. So, and because it's smaller, everybody got the opportunity to get a lot more high touch, right, from staff. So when the vendors had a problem, we're like, oh, can we do this thing? Absolutely. I'm right there. It's not that complicated to find us, and we can make adjustments as needed. So, but I tell you though, having your friends, and I mean, the BSers are our friends too. Having those guys show up, Corey and Farmer. Michael Drescher was there too. Completely surprised me because that guy's usually locked down at his job, right? So he drove straight up, and as he said, it's the most straight 100-mile commute from Madison ever because it is get on I-39 and go straight. But he and his buddy who came to Gamehole made it up. It was a birthday gift for himself, Drescher's, and he got a chance to come up and hang out for a while on Sunday. I felt bad he couldn't have made it Saturday because there was more hopping on Saturday, but he still said he had a lot of fun. So it was just so cool to turn around and go, oh my God, these are my friends. And they all showed up to help support this thing we're trying to put on. So it was really cool. I told people 90% awesome, 1% hell, and the rest of it's just shit that has to get better. So it was good.
Fantastic, man. All right. We better get going, dude. We're going to be here all freaking night.
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right, let's get into Random Encounter. Random Encounter, segment of the show. Fielding emails, voicemails, comments from social media. Got a Goblin's Henchman voicemail.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll play any second now.
Of course it will. Of course it will.
Well, you know what? I had this hold up. Hold on a second. Let me just refresh quick. Here we go. Oh, now it doesn't want to play. Let's see if I can get this to play anyway. Nope. Wait a minute. Stand by. Technical difficulties. I got it. Hold on a second.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's TV because we can do this.
Yeah. I don't know what this thing's doing.
Oh.
All right, maybe we'll
Happy New Year, BSs. It's the Goblin's Henchman here with another voice message. Just wanted to respond to the comments made by Michael in episode 121 about the issue of sort of clicking into action mode when players are engaged in analysis paralysis, where they spend sort of half an hour analyzing a situation and coming up with a plan, and how I, in a previous message, said that one way to deal with this is to force the players to make quick decisions, sort of put them on the spot, go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And Michael came back with a core BS on that and had some valuable points, but in some ways, I think I don't think he's quite right in some of his remarks. He had sort of two prongs to his argument. The first was that it's sort of a character realism point of view, and the other one was the sort of to do with player management. So it's from a DMing person to person kind of issue. From the player realism, I think Michael's point was that these characters are training and drilling all the time, and when they're faced with an eventuality, that training comes out, and then that allows the players to talk about the scenario and say, well, this would have accounted for what we would have done in our training, and therefore we're allowed this extra time. Well, I'm not sure, from my point of view, I don't really buy that. My experience of characters or players playing their characters are that most characters are on a sort of get rich quick scheme. They're not the sort of guys who drill and train. They're not the military. I suppose if you had a group of paladins, they might on their spare time drill. I mean, my image of these guys is the sort of typical murder hobo. I know some people don't like that term, but when they get back to the village, back from the adventure, they're spending their money. They're smoking pipe weed. They're down the tavern chasing, ladies or guys, depending on their, predilection. They're not drilling. And I suppose even if you accepted that premise that these characters drill in their spare time, I think it's just not realistic in certain scenarios. Yes, if some orcs are running at you, yes, we can have a sort of impression of what we might do, even if you discount the sort of precious scenario of enacting a plan that you've already prepared. But let's imagine a scenario: you're teleported into a room. It's an ice cavern. 60 feet in front of you, there's a beholder. There's a stream of lava between you and the beholder, and on each flank is owlbear riding kobolds. And from above, piercers begin to drop, and the characters look at each other and go, "Brilliant! We planned for this." No, it's impossible. So I think that sort of drilling idea, I don't think really works. There's just too many variables for that to be reasonable. Now, I think the second point he made was a lot more valuable in the sense of player management. Is it right to put a new player or shy player on the spot and say, "What do you do?" I think each DM has to know their players and judge that. I think from my point of view, I found it really actually was the opposite. Normally what happens in these analysis paralysis scenarios is one or two people are calling the shots. So some self-appointed leader, one of the shy players chirps up with an idea. Maybe we should use a fireball. He goes, no, you need to save that for later. And they sort of, shout them down or could have browbeat them out of their choices. So I found that when you did this scenario and put people in individual, what do you do? It gave those people actually a voice. They had to make a choice because it was their turn. And if you're worried, the DM can work his way around the table and go to those people last, the new player or the shy player. And after 5 or 6 people have had their turn, they can just say, "Oh, yeah, I also charge, or, they can copy someone else's opinion, or they can actually express what they wanted to say all along. So I think from that point of view, yes, you don't want to put people on the spot who don't want to be. But I think it actually is more liberating than that. And I think just one other thing is, like any tool, you don't have to use it every single time. That would be boring. I think this tool of putting people under live action scenario on the spot, go, really is a great tool when players are somehow getting in a rut of analysing, 30 minutes about the door handle. Do we open it? Do we bash it down? Just get on with it. I think this can sort of be a tool to speed up the game in those scenarios. I think it would be boring to do it every single time, and I think players should have time to think and express themselves, because otherwise that's part of the game. So in certain circumstances, like the wacky beholder scenario I came up with, well, actually I'd let them talk that through, because it'd be interesting to see what ideas they came up with, even in the case it wasn't particularly realistic that they have 30 minutes to chat about it. So anyway, that's my two bits on it. So make of that what you will. Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for the great show, and yes, cheers, fellas.
So thanks to Goblin's Henchman for the voicemails. Much appreciated. So I think this is one of those situations where it's a agree to disagree, right? I think
the piece he said in there, which is very, very true, is that it's very difficult, at least in my opinion, to say there's only one right way to do a thing. If you know your group and you understand how they play, it's easier to do or use certain tactics. And some people may also not feel comfortable using a certain approach. And I can say, use a go, as Henchman and I are talking about, and people may be like, oh yeah, that totally works for me. And they don't really understand the full details of how I do it. But I think you're right. There's no one right way to do it. But his points are valid too. I think there's some good stuff in there.
All right. So next up, sir.
Yes. Corey Wynn. Oh, and Corey, by the way, thank you again. He brought the Astonishing Swordsman Sorcerers of Hyperborea box set I bought from him. And he got it signed by Jeff for me. So that's pretty cool. Put a picture up on GG Plus. It's just fucking awesome. Anyway, it's liberating. I can curse again. Corey Wynn emailed us, and
it's the small things.
It's the small things. It is absolutely the small things. I had a hard time not swearing all weekend, especially at certain points.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, you were probably on your real best behavior, weren't you?
I did be like business Brett for 3 days.
Business Brett. That is Brett's alter ego.
Yes. Greetings,
to be.
To be. The business
From
Brett.
now
Double
on,
B.
moving forward, to be.
There you go. Greetings, consumers business. Greetings, consumers of beer and sausage. Man, chaining Brett down so he can't curse is like telling a politician they can't lie. An impossibility. Glad Sean had his +4 bleep of speech concealment going. In other news, by the time this airs, my daughters and I should have met Brett at EverCon and had a good time, which indeed they did. Raising a glass in GaryCon now when I may see you again. Here's a funny but horrible story about names and problems with them. Years ago, while starting a second edition AD&D game, I was gearing up for a typical fantasy with made-up Tolkien-esque names or sample ones provided or hinted at in the Realm's gray box. My brother, not Dave, the one between us, decided to name his character Tyrone. The other players came up with names that fit exactly the feel I wanted to convey, but Tyrone didn't fit. I hemmed and hawed, but was very blunt that Tyrone wasn't a name okay for this game. It had a certain feel and motif. My brother insisted that was the character's name. Fine, I'll live with it, but I was going to be a jerk in the process. I made him roll his character up by the book, every rule strictly enforced. He rolled almost a minimum amount of a gold as a fighter and could get. I giggled with glee inside because now this improperly named character was going to get it. He couldn't afford any weapon and armor, so he settled on a shield to at least have some defense and have a way to bash opponents. Unbeknownst to him, the town the party started in was filled with a cult, an anti-Tyronist cult. Yep, every citizen, the men, women, and children, even the pets, were nefariously evildoers, hell-bent on killing anyone they met named Tyrone. I had no rational history behind this very irrational hatred, other than to kill this PC who dared have his name, other than what was quote-unquote acceptable for me in said game. It didn't take long. Sorry, this is funny.
Get it together, man.
It didn't take long before the townsfolk found out his name and killed him mercilessly. I was happy for a while, as you would. Excuse me. He continues, but it really stalled the start of the campaign as my brother was upset and wouldn't play with the others. With others playing, trying to moderate between us. Long story short, that was the one and only time I've had names bother me. I have also mellowed out and have plenty of fun games with said brother since, and we still smirk about that episode. Only time I know when I was a willing, awful, bad DMGM. I played in a Star Wars Edge of Empire game where I had a pilot that was named Captain Hugh space Jorgen, and other games where names are silly. It can be an eye roller, especially in Call of Cthulhu, but I have since mellowed out on it. In my home world of Deluin, I have made up names and mishmash of common words for place names, etc. I'll also have to show you both the map sometimes. Keep up the great work, and here's a die roll for you. Oh, we'll throw that in die roll.
Did he give us a die roll?
He did.
Oh, I might have overlooked that.
We'll put it down there. You carry on.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Mr. Wynn, for writing in.
Absolutely.
All right, Crim Fan comments on silly names. I find silly names are really only good in the right circumstances. For a lighthearted game, it's okay, but if the campaign isn't really lighthearted, the names tend to be jarring and violate suspension of disbelief. For a gnome or halfling, that's kind of expected. Much as dwarves have pseudo-Scottish accents these days. You know, I'm going to get a shirt that's like dwarves against Scottish accents.
Yes.
Like.
Or do all your, make sure all your dwarves sound like they're from Finland or something. Something just different.
Right, yeah.
Vikings
right.
or have a Spanish accent or a French accent, something different.
Yeah, right. To avoid making things silly, I've tried using names from other cultures. I had a publication that had a bunch of nameless. This often works for town names, for instance, where you can pick names off a map. Mongolian worked pretty well for me for a while, but as you guys said, Norse, Celtic, Greek, etc. work pretty well. Someone I play with uses Hebrew names fairly often. I do have one long-standing rule. No NPC has the same name as a PC, and nobody has the same name as a player or the DM. Which I can totally understand. Like,
I did that on purpose once. I made an NPC that had the same name as a player character. I did it on purpose.
Did you really?
Yeah, because
what a dick move.
Yeah, because it caused confusion. It was great.
That is hilarious.
Sorry, carry on.
I'm still
laughing.
As a player,
I'm still laughing about killing
I'm going to
Tyrone.
sit down.
Sorry.
What's your let's see. And your name is it's Greenfelder Hoppenscape. Okay, you. All right, I'm Fiddlebottom. Okay, and you, Dave. Your character's name is Dave. Yeah, Dave Johnson.
Dave Johnson. It's Mr. Dave Johnson.
Yeah,
Senior.
Mr. Stephanie Schultz. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Hilarious. Let's get into the main topic, shall we?
Let's do it.
Thanks, Crim Fan, for commenting. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. All right. So Brett was out, and when Brett's out, he's like, kind of like, hey, man. He's not doing the topic.
When I'm out, I check out. I'm like, whatever. Fuck that Sean guy.
So when you listen to 121, we said, we're like, well, actually, it was after. We didn't even mention. We were like, well, we got to tune in and see what we're going to talk about. And we didn't decide. And then after that, Brett and I sat and talked. And I'm like, hey, dude, you're going to be at EverCon. What do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. Oh. I said, well, I got it. So then Brett comes back. And I'm like, hey, we're all set.
And Brett
tells me, hey, we're not recording on Sunday. Hey, I can't record on Sunday. I'm like, no shit, dickhead. We're going to be on Monday.
And Brett's like, oh, what's the topic?
Right. And then he's like, okay, I got to do it at, 6 o'clock. I'm like, I got to get home from work, walk dogs, feed animals. I'm like, 7 o'clock. We agreed on this. Brett's like, oh, okay. So his brain is completely fried.
Mostly.
And then I said, we're talking about the weather. And he goes, okay, well, I'll get the outline going. And so what, I'll put a topic down. I was thinking about maybe talking about EverCon. And I go, no, we're talking about the weather.
Yeah, and I still don't buy it for like an hour after that. I'm like, whatever, he's fucking with me. So I pull up the outline and holy shit, we're talking about the weather.
I said, did you get the outline? But I thought, yeah, the weather, man. We're talking about the weather. So I'm driving this bus tonight.
You are, which is good because I could use a train conductor right now. I am a sleepy man.
right?
Let's do it.
Only so apropos. So, Brett.
Yes, Sean.
That's really loud. The weather. Now, it's kind of funny because in Wisconsin, that is kind of the thing, right? Whenever there's an awkward moment, people in Wisconsin will relate to this, maybe even the Midwest, even maybe where you are. People, small talk, awkward, you're in an elevator. Wow, it's cold outside. Oh, it's really nice outside.
You come in,
humid.
you come in bundled up like everyone, like all the vendors did. I had one vendor come into Evercon. I could see his eyes barely through his steamed up glasses. He's got like the scarf pull up, a huge parka hood. He's fully wrapped like a Arctic expedition. And he says, "Well, at least it's not cold." I mean, it's just I'm like, holy crap.
So I'm like, two Wisconsin guys got to do the topic about the weather. So Brett, the weather.
Yes.
How there's a few ways. How do you use the weather in your RPGs?
I try to.
Do you try to?
Absolutely. When I run Avalon, it helps me enhance the way the city feels. If you have rain come in, it makes the streets muddy. It makes sight distance even harder. And I do the same thing like in a forest, right? If there's rain, or I want to obscure or cause, even if it's a non-mechanical impact, just to have a tension booster, right? Wake up, Sean's coughing to death. Wrong pipe. Wow. I can't, he's too far away. I can't even Heimlich maneuver the guy. That's no good.
Scotch freaking went down the wrong pipe, man. It's not like water.
You wuss.
I'm sorry, Brett. I'm sorry. Continue.
I can breathe Scotch. Just it's a learned behavior. You can do it.
Well, if you can breathe fire, Scotch is like water.
See, there you are. Anyhow, so doing it really helps it takes the environment that you're in and solidifies that for everybody. And players that are paying attention, excuse me, with their characters are going to want to do very specific things. Like, oh, it's muddy. Can I see the tracks? You said it was raining outside like crazy. Has anyone been in my room? There's going to be water somewhere or something. It gives clues and specific things that everybody can use. It's to that point of you set the scene of you're in a basement underneath a tavern and a fight breaks out. Sean, what do you do? Well, I look around for a bottle and I grab it and I smash the guy. However you have that discussion. We've talked about that before. But setting that piece of natural natural environment. All the environments are mostly natural. Anyway, tired Brett is tired. But sets the tone completely. And it becomes a unified tone. No one goes, well, is it muddy or rainy or what the hell is it? I don't even know what it's like outside. Someone goes, well, it's obviously sunny. No, it's cold. It's not cold. What day is it? What's going on? It sets a clear expectation of what that looks like. Do you do it?
I don't do it as much as I should. And the reason is I think it's something that is, if it's not front of mind.
It's dumb and stupid. No, wait. Oh, it's not front.
It's not dumb and stupid.
Okay.
It's just not always thought of because you're always like, okay, you're going to travel somewhere. You travel, and you travel some more. Right? But weather, it can play a few different roles. Right? In the RPG. So, Brett.
Yes.
You use it, but why? Is there a particular reason? You mentioned how it uniformly paints the picture across the table, but is there a particular reason why you implement weather?
Usually for thematic issues, right? If it's thunder and lightning and I have a big combat and it's at night, crack, the thunder crack, the flash of the lightning, the whole, boom, thunderbolt goes by, the lightning goes, and in the flash of that briefest of light, you see the hooded figure, the cliche, the hooded figure goes and ducks behind the bar, outside the tavern. And then you're immediately submerged in another torrential downpour as the clouds burst opening in. What do you do? That's different than, okay, you see a hooded figure go around a corner. What do you do? That narrative makes it sound scarier or different or something that you actually feel like you're involved in. Otherwise, it becomes very third person-y. Right? If you tell somebody, it's really, really cold. Thank God your character's wearing his winter boots. Your beard is frosted up. Your eyebrows have got icicles hanging on them. Your long braided hair is, got ice crystals in it. The snow is pounding on you. What do you want to do? Players that hear that type of thing also, in my mind, even if they don't normally have a narrative bent, they want to take that element and utilize it in their descriptions of their actions. That is the main reason, now that I talk it through aloud, that I do it. If I tell you that it's super boiling hot out and this, that, and the other thing, okay, you're going to camp. It's still about 110 degrees. Sean looks at me and goes, well, I'm taking off this plate mail armor, for God's sakes. This thing's been hot. I'm not sleeping in that. I'm assuming I've stripped down to nothing but my skivvies because it's too hot out here. There's no way I'm going to wear that stuff. It helps to reinforce a certain type of role-playing interaction to me. Make sense?
It does make sense. And I think that we mentioned setting tone, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Paints a picture of the environment.
Yes.
Right. Sound. Do you get into the sound piece of weather?
If it's so if you got howling wind, do I hear anything? With the wind, the howl, the ice crystals beating on your ears, it's really, really hard to hear. Maybe then you reach into your mechanic bag and say, yep, you're going to get a -2 penalty on that roll. Or you hear something, maybe it's a wolf, maybe it's the wind, maybe it's that horrible bugbear, cabal that's been following you for the past week. I don't know. And if it's a horrible, nasty rain in a swamp or in some farmer's field, it probably smells because there's those components of it. And sometimes rain even deadens smell, right? Water comes down and drives those things out. If it's super hot and everything's baking and you walk past roadkill, if you ever had the displeasure of having to do that, it's nasty. And that's just one more thing that the weather drives affected behavior. Actually, not affected behavior. All your senses are impacted by it. And because the players only know what their characters' sensations are through what we tell them or what they work with us to tell us, how we jointly tell that story, the more input you can give them, the better. I'm not saying I do it all the time or I do it very well all the time. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm positive there's been a number. Off the top of my head, I can think of a number of different examples where I got done and went, shit, that entire encounter was supposed to have taken place during a storm. Forgot the storm. Oh, well, still had fun.
Right.
That happens.
And it does. And sometimes, so that would go to my next question with you, Brett, is when do you stipulate when it happens? Is there a point to implementing it for you when you run a game? Is it like, this must take place during a rainstorm, snow blizzard, dry drought, whatever? There's because there's a couple ways we can implement this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's either I planned this piece, or I rolled randomly, or whatever kind of random piece of it, however you want to implement it. So I guess the question is there a purpose when you implement weather that sets the tone? Is there a reason why?
I get it.
Other than just saying it's raining and I want to paint the picture.
Yeah, so if I'm starting a Kickstarter campaign, the first session, I know for a fact it's going to look like this. Because I'm like, first session, who's there? Great, you're going to start here, and this is the weather, because I want to paint the picture right away. So I purposely remember and start it in a certain way. After that, it becomes, to me, often a random encounter chart type of thing. I could practically have, if I were to use random encounter charts, it could be, external, it could be bugbears, passing wyvern, dragon, freak snowstorm, whatever. All of that stuff is it's an encounterable thing. It's a potential random event that you could happen. Going through a desert, dust storm comes up, wind shifts cause sounds or something along those lines. Those types of things I have used in the past. So it becomes, instead of sometimes it's, ninjas kick in the door and attack the party, it's there, you hear a distant rumble, and then rain. Because the party's been planning to do something, they've been dicking around planning for a while. I don't want to kick the door in with ninjas, but I'm going to make them have to do something pretty quick because a storm is coming, and their plan is to sail out of town. You sailing tonight or not? There's a storm coming. Ooh.
So you're using it in that particular instance, you're using to propel them
into action.
If you don't move, you're going to be facing a whole heap load of crap tomorrow.
Yep.
And you're not going to be able to get out of the harbor or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're so modern setting, you're sitting in Wausau, Wisconsin, saying, God, we should go to the con today. It's really cold out. I don't know what's it supposed to be. Someone comes in a tavern, stomps off their boots, and, geez, I think we're supposed to get an ice storm tonight. Good God. Wouldn't want to be anywhere on the roads tonight, I tell you that. And then he walks off, orders a beer. Right there, shit, that's a random encounter. Dude told
Yeah,
me
sure.
that the weather just changed. And that, again, it propels the story and makes them take action without it being a physical threat or a something. It's not, how do I want to say it? It's more, it feels passive to me, more of a passive threat. It's not necessarily a plot threat. It's like, look, it's going to fucking rain and you were planning to camp for the next 6 days. You want to do that?
Yeah.
So do you, when you do it, do you plot it?
Yeah.
Do you plot it out or do you?
I think I do it to make it different than the norm. So I think it is a matter of, you're going across land and everything's, everybody thinks it's sunshine and clear skies. Everything's fine. Butterflies are flying around. Birds are chirping. That's probably the standard. But sometimes, I kind of think of the John Wick kind of perspective. Like, let's kind of make things miserable for the player characters. Throw some rain in front of them. Make it just downpour.
Well, hardship is
muddy, crappy, damp, wet, cold, just miserable.
If I ask you what memorable march you've ever been on with your platoon back in the days in the Army, I'm assuming you're not going to give me the time it was gorgeous and beautiful. You're going to remember the time it was freezing fucking cold or you're up to your ass in swamp.
There are plenty of times where I can look back and go, I remember movements and exercises that we were on that were just great days, right? You're out and it's open and everything's great. However,
that's a boring story.
It is. And usually it doesn't always go that route.
No.
But it varies. I have had those beautiful days, right, that are great. And it's not a drought, but I'll give you an example. So in Hohenfels, Germany, and Grafenwehr. So during World War II or even before that, Hitler imported a bunch of sand so that Rommel and his boys can train for desert warfare for Africa. And so when you go to those places, they're called sand tables. There's sand tables everywhere. So what happens is it's a really nice day and it's dry. And then you go down the tank trail. You go down a tank trail with, 30 plus ton vehicles. Literally, I remember going to one exercise. I know I'm getting to
No. This is why you do this though, because this story. Keep going.
Yeah. So what happens is we are a new unit, right? We're going into the exercise area, right? We're pulling into Grafenwehr. We have our stuff on railheads, which is train, flat cargo train. I don't know what the hell cars, I guess. And we were coming off, and then what happens is we were coming off and another unit was getting on. And when we were coming off, we're like, wow, are those German troops? Because they were all gray. Well, they weren't German. They were American, U.S., OD green. But because I'm like, oh, no, are you kidding me? It was all dust. There was so much dust that it turned the colors of all the vehicles whitish gray.
It's like the Wisconsin salt winter, right? My black truck is now white. Salt.
It is. And when I was a driver for a vehicle and driving down those tank trails during those times, I mean, you almost wish a little rain would be good. The problem is when it would rain a lot, then you're instant mud everywhere. So you had two extremes. And if it rained and then it kind of dried, you'd be right after rain, perfect. During the rain, no good.
It's there's a 1 day sweet spot, then it just goes to hell.
But we used to have to wrap ourselves up. I mean, because the dust was so bad, we'd have goggles on, but anyways.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing that you mentioned is when you said it's not necessarily a drought or something, right? But it could be. Right. I mean, you take something in here. You mentioned the potato famine in the notes we were looking at here. So you do something in an area, you encounter it, and you put a famine in. Not famine, excuse me, and a dry spell, a super long dry spell, and people are like, oh, it's a drought, nothing's growing, or it's really rainy, and all the turnips are rotten, or there's an infestation of bugs or something's in here now because the weather has gone bad. The mosquitoes are thick as hell. All the weather has such impact on everything else around you. It just becomes a great catalyst for those types of stories. I think it's a neat place to start.
Well, and frankly, we're touching on maybe more of the natural weather, right? There's even the unnatural, right? So,
Well, Greyhawk, rain of colorless fire.
Gandalf's going through the mountains, man.
Yeah.
This stuff's not natural, man. It's coming down. Somebody's trying to knock him off the mountain.
Yeah.
Make it impassable. So now you got that going on. So then,
when you're playing a fantasy game, that type of thing comes into your head, right? As a player,
sure.
If you're describing this to me, and I'm going to fight the Warlock of Witch Mountain, and I'm on my way to fight the Warlock of Witch Mountain, and we have on day 5 of an ice storm, I'm probably going to think, you know what? Fucking Warlock of Witch Mountain might be an ice wizard. This is not good. Is this going to continue? Is he doing this to us? What's happening here? Those things play into your head. Even if it's not. Even if you're using a random table, like, oh, look at ice storm. Oh, that's weird. 5th day in a row, ice storm. The players are going to start wondering what's going down.
So we've covered a little bit of the flavor, right? So it's tone, it's feel, it's the sound, it's the smell. All that can play a role in describing the environment of which to set the immersion and immerse the player character into, right?
Correct.
Now, what about the mechanics piece?
Yeah.
When does the GM stick it to the players?
I hinted at earlier, right? It's a horrible blizzard. I want to see if I can hear any noise. Good luck. -10. I can't see through the dust storm. Nope. Wind is blowing so hard. I took this out of the old Wilderness Survival Guide, first edition AD&D. Try to shoot arrows into a horrible gale force wind. Good luck. Arrows don't travel that fast. It causes problems. I shoot a compound bow.
Missile weapons, forget about it. Right?
I shoot a compound bow, and if it's too windy, it drifts. Hell, you shoot high speed rifles, the wind drift takes its toll at certain range.
Hey, newsflash! If you're shooting modern day artillery, and there's wind, there's a thing called drift.
Yeah,
and that's 100 to 200 pound round.
Yeah, it will move it.
It will.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
You ever see a semi almost get blown off the road? Wind impact, driving issues, ice on roads, your modern day stuff, trying to land a spacecraft, and then crashing into Dagobah because it's a fucking swamp. I mean, poor Luke Skywalker, right? Oh my God, I have no sensors. I can't see shit. Sploosh. This happens.
Sploosh.
And I think those penalties, and I mean, we kind of hit that too when we talk drought. It's like there's no water. How much water did you guys bring with you? You get to lean into our old gear episode when you talk encumbrance and stuff that you brought with you. Do you have water? Yeah, I think we would. Okay, let's agree right now. You got about 5 days worth of water on you. That sounds about right. Yeah, let's go.
Or create water now is a spell that you want. Where before it was like,
yeah, you keep looking at that old cleric. What the hell? Back in the day, why did you waste a spell slot for create water? You dumbass. And then, oh wait, guess who made create water today, boys? That's what's going on. Yeah, that happens. That happens.
Well, and now at the same time, as a dungeon master, game master, if that's the case, you gotta kind of make that happen, right? If cleric's like create water, you give them a drought. Oh, it comes in handy. Kind of feed that a little bit.
I'll tell you, if you have a ranger or a druid, you have a nature-loving individual who, I'm from the woods, I love to be in the wilderness. I'm a mountain dwarf ranger who's hunted yetis upon the tundras of the north. I might as well throw some weather at these folks. I mean, that they made a character specifically about the weather, right? You have a druid character who likes to call lightning and stuff. They should be attuned to these things. You have someone who summons lightning all the time. Just make it about storms or something. You can take character backgrounds and concepts that they've got, and the weather may have important meaning to that.
So we got away from the mechanics piece.
A little bit. Sorry, I'm just saying, to me, it's a lot of it's about penalties.
VC was talking about Jeff. Jeff, DM, GM Jeff. He's written in before. We know Jeff. Jeff, we got your number, buddy. Jeff said, what's the point of weather if it's not going to impact the characters? So that's the deal, right? If you're going to make it dry, you're going to make it wet, you're going to make it snow, you're going to make it cold, whatever the weather's like, maybe it's great. Maybe it's just like, hey, it's awesome, man. It's great.
Freak snowstorm. Do you have boots? Do you have warm?
But
clothes?
Mechanically, Brett. Okay, so
yeah,
we got the boots, we got the wear.
So you don't have it? Okay. You take 4 hit points of damage. Why?
What?
You have frostbite.
No.
Yeah.
Hyperthermia.
Hypothermia sets in. You're
No.
going to die. I
Oh my
mean,
God.
it's terrible.
What?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just swim across the lake. It's 20 below zero. You really want to do that? I mean,
Swim across the lake that's probably frozen
Yeah, I mean,
at minus 20, Brett?
I'm just saying, it's just these are things that you want to walk, you want to swim. Unnatural cold snaps, is ice freezing. If it's magical, who knows? No, just swim across this magically clear lake here. That'll be totally fine.
What about movement, man?
Yes,
Throw movement in there.
Your movement penalties get slowed down. You can't see. You got snow up to your ass. It's mud up to your knees. Good luck with that. And then in combat, oh my God. Oh, there's mud up to your knees, and you're going to engage with the troll, the swamp troll that lives
Everything
here.
is hazardous terrain, right?
Absolutely.
Half movement, quarter movement.
Yeah, I mean, those rules you get to pull those rules out. You've looked at all those terrain rules. You're like, yeah, I've never used that. I've never used that. Even if you're playing something like 5e, like, you know what? I'm throwing disadvantage on all y'all, because guess what? You're fighting semi-arboreal tree trolls, and you're stuck in mud in the swamp. Good luck. I mean, it can get pretty ugly. That's when the weather and the conditions like that really have more of an impact than just flavor.
Could be positive, though.
Oh, totally.
Ranger, tracking. Oh, yeah, man. +5, dude. Snow everywhere. You can see tracks everywhere.
Well, I hinted at that before, right? In my Avalon setting,
Yeah.
if it's raining outside, you come in a building towards the water, where's the mud, I get a bonus on my tracking roll. Hey, it just rained. I can see these tracks clear, or fresh snow. I can follow the stuff simpler. Give bonuses.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can bonus people up.
Dan's talking about rust and armor. Stamina.
Yes.
Fatigue.
If
You are fatigued, right? Throw in the conditions.
Exactly. If you have those things, that anything that can be a combat condition can be a natural condition. Nature will kick your ass. And anything that is you're blinded, can't see shit. You're blind. Penalty. Can't feel anything. It's freezing cold. You can't feel anything. You have pending frostbite. You can't use your hands so well. Minuses on you.
Jeff mentions downpouring rain, and there's a flood. You got to go around, right? You can't cut across the river; it's flooded out.
Yeah, and if
the path is,
and if you want to swim, penalties again, because water's deep and fast moving, and there's boulders and trees and dead animals rolling around in it too. So,
but now there's also one thing that I wanted to mention was it plays a role not in with just adventuring, but you're talking economics.
Yes,
right. Sieges. Right. So if there's weather and you're laying siege supply lines, it impacts a lot of stuff. But people don't think about that. Like, hey, I'm gonna go and buy stuff in this town. Well, guess what? They don't have any of that because it's been downpouring for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to get their supplies. Oh, and hey, what if you're bringing food in? People are starving.
Yeah.
I mean, you could develop an entire ecosphere just around wacky weather patterns. And speaking of wacky weather patterns, then you get into, well, is it just like a daily thing where you're in Hawaii, it rains twice a day, and everybody goes, and then it's going to over and it's going to be sunny?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about
Mount St. Helens blows up and it takes all flights out?
Winter is coming,
yeah.
Right? Game of Thrones, like you're talking about winter's coming, 5 years, 10 years of winter.
Yeah.
Crops.
Yeah, think about, shit. Yeah.
And you be put on a mission just to get food.
Well, even if not that, then you're put on a mission to save the food you have, right? I mean, then the war happens because everyone knows it's going to come, and they're worried about the barony down the street that's got more than they do, and things that used to be happy-go-lucky now aren't quite so happy-go-lucky. No, I like that. That's cool.
Potato famine of Ireland, right?
Yep.
If you want something as a kind of an inspiration, well, it's kind of a negative inspiration, right? But if you want to look at what that's all about.
Well, just the impact of any drought, the Dust Bowl stuff, anything like that. Ethiopia, the famines, the droughts that they've had.
Hurricanes, man.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Right?
The damage.
Tornadoes.
Yep. You can
natural, unnatural,
yep.
Right? If it's unnatural, what is the root of it? Can you get rid of it? Is it something you can do? Modern day campaigns, right?
Yes.
You can implement all that. You could even as a spy game implement it as a conspiracy theory, right? Or maybe somebody's got a weather manipulator.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's a Spectre thing. That's a crazy Bond villain thing. I'll make it rain for 1,000 days or something. Yeah. No,
It's the
yeah,
antenna.
yeah.
It's the antenna in Alaska. What the hell is that?
Oh, yeah.
You know about that, Brett?
Is it?
You know what I'm talking about?
I think you've mentioned this before.
It is. It's like they mess with the ionosphere and they think it's a weather controller or manipulator, and that's why we're getting all the hurricanes.
Of course it is. That's right. The government controls
radio
hurricanes.
radio frequencies.
I forgot about the government controlled hurricanes. Yeah, that is a thing.
But it's, there it is, HARP. Eric Farmer, thank you very much. HARP.
Yes.
The HARP antenna,
HARP.
right?
Yep.
But if you're playing a modern day, the weather can manipulate quite a bit, right? Like, hey, if you can control the weather and you're in the business that relies on whether good or bad, Brett, you and I worked for an insurance company, insured crop insurance.
Yeah. Oh, guess what? Famine. No crops. Hey, guess what's getting paid out? Oh, Lord.
Right?
Nice. I like it. This is a good topic, man. I gave you a little shit, but when I started reading the notes, I'm like, you know what? I use this a lot. Maybe not even as much as I want. And you don't want to overuse it. It can't be all the time, every time, because it gets boring as hell. But it's people talk about the weather because it's a real goddamn thing that impacts your life.
And hey, and one thing we didn't touch on, which we'll move on in a bit, but geographic location too, right? Some areas are more susceptible to certain weather, right? You go to the rainforest, it's called the rainforest because it's not a desert.
Yeah, it's damp there.
Right.
Moist. It's noted for its moisture.
And it's humid and buggy. And even with that weather, it creates an ecosphere. You got a lot of bugs and humidity and it's miserable and whatever. Same with desert, dry, parched lips, thirst. So even geographically, if you have your home world or your own campaign setting, you're going to have certain weather patterns. But it's something that you can implement as a game master that I think is rather overlooked, actually. We look at some of the bigger, like, hey, it's the big bad evil person. This is the plot. What's going on? Throw weather into the mix, man. You could have all kinds of fun.
I like it. Good stuff, man.
You with me, Brett?
You do good work while I'm gone. Nice.
So let us know how you have used the weather. Be interested to hear from you if that's the case. And if you don't use the weather, maybe it's something you want to take a look at. Brett, right?
Absolutely. No, sounds good. I like it. Well said.
All right, let's get into die roll. 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery we want to bring to you or inspiration for your game. Brett's been busy, so we're going to pick up the slack a little bit. I got a couple from listeners. So I will let Brett go and you do the listeners.
Sure. One from Joe Swick. He's got a link out there to 11 hidden spots to enter the underworld. Why would you not want to have this list? And then the one from Corey Wynn is a link over to Advanced Designers and Dragons. It's their 2016 year in review. Talks about farewells. A few people that have left the gaming industry, unfortunately, have died. Talks about some changes within the different industry. Fantasy Flight Games not being with Games Workshop anymore. A little bit on the state of D&D. Some cool stuff. Talks about the rise of the indie gaming and all that. So neat little article. Good write-up, I think. So good stuff there from Corey. And those are listener one. Sean, over to you, sir.
In Joe's?
I did that.
Oh, you did Joe's?
Yeah, that was the first
spots?
one. That's the first one I read.
Oh my God, where have I been the last 5
minutes? I have no idea.
I'm sorry. I was getting caught up with finding out what Corey's was about. Mine, WotC offers insight into Eberron's Artificer class. So the latest article over there has to deal with the Artificer. If you're a fan of Eberron, a few people out there that are. Looking at you, Christian Serrano.
I was going to say, if Christian Serrano isn't the first person you think of.
Yeah. Check it out. Number 2 for me, augmented reality free PDF. So if you are Cyberpunk, you got to go and get this PDF. It is free. Enhance your games of the dark future with the easy-to-use augmented reality Cyberpunk City Kit. Inside, you'll find over 50 tables designed to assist game masters who need to improvise futuristic city details or who have found that they are unprepared for where their players are heading.
Nice.
Cyberpunk systems, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk 2020, Interface Zero. There's the Sprawl. Sometimes players will kind of go off, and this PDF may help you as a game master adapt to those.
Especially if you're not. One of the things I like about these type of PDFs and these little game master tchotchkes, if you will, is because if I'm trying to get into a genre that I don't know really well, I'm only cursorily, if that's a word, connected to. Cursory. I don't have a lot of knowledge of the cyberpunk piece. I know bits and chunks of it, right? But having something like this to make sure I stay true to the thing I'm trying to emulate. So when the players go left instead of right, I have a thing that's true to the genre. It's similar to Silly Dames, right? So that way I don't have to pull a Corey Wynn and have an anti-Tyronus cult just because. Throwing your bottle caps around there.
Freaking coaster sticks to my glass.
Oh, you gotta get a thirsty zone, dude. That's what you do.
Oh, well, good to know.
I'll get you one. I'll get you one for your birthday.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks to Joel Eunicky for the review on iTunes.
Absolutely.
It's like a handle all squished together, so I don't know I'm sure it's Joe. It's Joe Eolunicki.
We screwed it up. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks for the review on iTunes, buddy.
Always nice to have them.
Yes. And then I also want to give a shout out to the Wild Die podcast. I'll have a link in the show notes. Christian Serrano was a guest on one of their bonus episodes. And those guys were like, they talked, and Christian's like, oh, somebody, actually Mongrel, the pure Mongrel, fan of the show.
Yes.
Has wrote into them. And Christian said, well, if you're going to read Mongrel's email, you got to read it like Sean Kelly's Aussie accent. And they did.
Did they? Awesome.
They did. And they're like, yeah, Game and BS. We listen to those guys. They're entertaining. They probably don't listen.
They probably don't listen to us, but that's okay.
That's all right. So they did it in an Australian accent, which I don't do. Like, I just do accents.
Yes, he just does an accent. We don't know what it's from or where it's from. It's just different way of speaking.
It's my way of not offending anybody.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if the Mongrel listens to us and the Wild Die, that means he's clearly a man of taste because he listens to us. Therefore, the Wild Die is clearly something you should listen to. I mean, that's what I got to say.
So if you're not familiar with the Wild Die, they are a Savage Worlds podcast. Go check them out.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it. So Gamehole Con, sponsor of the show, partner. We're endorsing them. Whatever disclaimer we want to put in here. 2017 first weekend in November. Get your ass to Gamehole Con.
Yes.
Gaming convention in November. We'll be there in full force. Most recent update, January 8th, which is a day before we're recording this, which is 2 days before this actually drops, the hotel blocks are opening up.
Fuck, I get in my room.
Right?
Yeah.
So get your room. There's about 4 hotels in walking distance. One is actually connected to the con. So if you plan on going, the blocks are opened up. Feel free to reserve that, like, as you listen to this.
Absolutely.
We thank them for helping us out, being there on the show, and all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
What are we talking about next week, Brett?
Next week, I think we should talk about social encounters. We've talked about the weather. Let's talk about talking about the weather, right? Let's have that social encounter. We'll do
social encounter?
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't know how many times I've run into like, hey, there's this and this happens. How do you run it? Like, and there's certain systems that completely and utterly suck ass facilitating social encounters, Brett.
So let's see what we can find out when we talk next week. We good?
That sounds like a plan, man.
I think so.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
Episodes like this one brought to you with the help from the following patrons: Christian Sexy Voice Serrano, Kevin Lovecraft, Joe Swick, Brett's Biggest Fan, Jeff Rademacher, Forrest DeGary, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Bruce Cunnington, Eric Jeppesen, Andy Hall, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Chris Steele, Knights of the Night Crew, Palladian, Jason Blaylock, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Merkel Froelich, Wayne Lumrunner Humfleet, James Carpio, not Caprio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnston, Eric Tankar, Brandon Barnes, Mark Tasaka, Brett Pazinski, Tim Shorts, Eileen Barnes, Chad Knight, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, Nicholas Abruzzo, Victor Wyatt, Tony the Butcher Baker, Craig Huber, Eli Kurtz, The Lost Sailor, Graham Miner, Todd McGowan, Roger Braslett, Misdirected Mark Productions, Old School DM, Jason, and Christopher Gray. For the cost of a coffee shop coffee, you could support the show for an entire month. Consider going to gamingmbs.com/Patreon. Thank you so much.